You ready?
I need to be mic'd up. Or we just use this?
Using this one?
Yeah, everyone can hear me, yes? Hey, we're all set. So thank you for this warm introduction. This is actually, this is actually a really big deal for me to be here. So I'm gonna just tell that story really fast. I was living here 10 years ago in Yerushalayim, a Haredi housewife. So we were running a software firm, and I was like, we were hacking and stuff, but I really didn't leave the house much, and I was also extremely shy. So I would see the things going on in Tel Aviv from my little house baking my Shabbat bread, in Nachlaot, and I wanted to be here so badly, and I just didn't know how to make that happen, at all. I was so shy I wouldn't even tweet, and it was, I made my account and I did nothing with it. And I had this dream that someday that would be different for me. And 10 years later, it was like a big journey. It took me through Silicon Valley first. I overcame the shyness and started to do more stuff, and eventually got to a place where I can be here, not just going to a meetup and hanging out, but actually sharing some stuff with you. So this is really exciting day for me. So thank you. Yeah. Of all the things I've done recently, this is really closest to my heart. So thank you, BSidesTLV. And let's get into it. We are here today talking about containers, exploits, surprises, and security. My name is Elissa Shevinsky, and for a bit, I thought I would be a developer advocate. And this talk was pre-packaged for all of that, And it was a lot more corporate. And a lot of the people who talk about Kubernetes, talk about containers, are beholden to the companies that they work with. I'm beholden to Soho Token Labs, my 22-year-old co-founder, who is a really badass hacker and is not going to be mad if I say some things about Kubernetes or about Docker. So I'm really excited about this talk because there aren't that many people on the circuit talking about Kubernetes and Docker who can really say these things that we need to say. So I'm really stoked about that. I think that's special. Oh, I'm sorry, the UI on this is a little different than I expected. I'm not seeing what you're seeing on my screen. Software is eating the world. Marc Andreessen famously said that in 2011. Okay, fair, that was true. But containers are now eating software. That's me saying that in 2018. Yeah, it's cool how fast things change, and containers are really cool. So I'm going to talk a little bit about them. I'm going to talk a little shit about them. But containers they're very cool, but the problem is insecure defaults are also eating your containers. They're eating your AWS instances, and that's a problem. So let's talk a bit about containers just to start. Let's talk about the promises that they make to us. Let's start with Docker. What is Docker? Does anyone in the audience want to tell me what is Docker? Truth? That's fair. Anyone else? It's a C group, okay. Well, they claim that they're the world's leading containerization platform. I'd argue that may or may not be true anymore, but it's okay that they say that. Their promise is also security. They also say that. They say that you can deliver applications safer across the entire lifecycle with built-in security capabilities and configurations out of the box. Just launch Docker and you're done. That's the promise. Out of the box. That sounds really good, right? Just launch it, security's done. I'm a regular developer. I don't have to think about it too much. So we are going to hold them accountable on that, because it's really not true. Very recently, just a few days ago, in fact, I only heard about it from one of the other speakers last night, a series of malicious cryptojacking files that were stored on Docker Hub have been downloaded more than 5 million times over the last year, used to mine over $90,000 worth of Monero. And that's Docker Hub. That looks really official, right? Like they're scanning what's there and they're making sure that you're not downloading malware, right? Like I have kind of enterprisey expectations about a site that's also promoting DockerCon. So high level, because I'm going to publish the slides later, like here's the timeline around Docker Hub. And zooming in, the registry was created in 2017, and the first complaint very soon after. Lots and lots and lots of complaints. And very recently, it's basically like a crypto mining botnet. So here's a quote from one of the blogs that did a good job of encapsulating this. For ordinary users, just pulling a Docker image from Docker Hub is like pulling arbitrary binary data from somewhere, executing it, hope for the best. So, yeah. Optimism, right? Optimism is a beautiful thing. But maybe less optimism in our software development. And so I originally thought this talk would really be a lot about Docker, because containers started with Docker, and Docker's so important, Docker's being used so widely. But the truth is, here we are. Docker is dead. From my friend Chris, who does some excellent talks in the States. So yeah, we're going to stop with Docker. I've said my piece about it. Because Docker as a company just doesn't have the future that we would hope that it has. And if you want to talk to me about the economics of making open source projects sustainable, I'm absolutely 100% here to think and talk about that, and I really respect what Docker is trying to do, but Kubernetes came in and ate their lunch. They didn't really have a business model. One of the co-founders left. And so that's my explanation to you for why the rest of the talk is not about Docker, despite being about containers. So, here's to having a business model. Please have a business model so you can stay in business. Docker is dead. So we're going to talk about Kubernetes now. What is Kubernetes? All right, from the audience, just shout it out. What is Kubernetes?
Orchestrator.
Yeah, it's an orchestrator. That's like the best summation. What else is Kubernetes?
Secure by default.
Insecure by default, yes. Well, and you just summarized my talk. I can get off stage. You want to come up? Anyone else? Do I see hands or? That shot of whiskey took its toll. You're all a little blurry. All right, so according to Google, Kubernetes is the industry-leading open source container orchestrator which powers Kubernetes engine. So that's true. That's a true statement, and that statement is fine. And the promise is that Kubernetes can, in theory, be really terrific security. So this diagram isn't the best for you to view from your seats, but it basically shows some of the defense in depth that's possible with containers and with Kubernetes. And when configured properly, it's a really powerful tool. So I think Kubernetes is really cool for big companies that can do the configurations and can support it. And one of those companies is Google. The Google Cloud website is really informative. Containers at Google, a better way to develop and deploy applications. Google has gone so far as to say that it is the Google way. From Gmail to YouTube to search, everything at Google runs in containers, and they operate an unprecedented 2 billion containers a week. So that's a lot. So that's the containers are eating software, right? It's really taking over. It's very interesting. And we need more security people diving into containers, because I'm in cryptocurrency now, so someone come up and do this instead of me next year. Here's the problem with Kubernetes. The CIS benchmarks is a very long list. It's just so much to do the configuration. It is not secure out of the box. And by the way, these CIS benchmarks, they're very thorough and they did a good job, and thank you CIS benchmarks, but this is not prioritized. And so it's just, your list of 300 things that you have to do. It's a lot. It's a lot for a 2-person team. My team's 2 people. I don't think we're going to do this. And I really want to show up here today and talk to you about fancy exploits, because you're kind of fancy hackers. And I'm a fancy girl. It's true. So I'd like to get fancy and talk about like Spectre and Meltdown, which by the way, like came about through like Matt Blaze's research facility that's funded by like the DoD, and like this just ended up as like a weird outgrowth of that funding. Just like hooray for like weird academic research. Yeah, right? So I really want to talk to you about fancy exploits, but we're just going to talk about the oldies but goodies, good old misconfiguration, because that's what's actually going on here. This is my favorite slide, because it's a container that's on fire. It's a trash fire. It's a container trash fire. Because Kubernetes has so many attack vectors, and they just don't have to be that way. This is a choice. This is a design choice made by the people at Kubernetes, who are people at Google who have decided this is how they want to do the software. So, you know, you love trash, you get a trash fire. I love trash. You love insecure by default. You love trash. It's trash, right? It's trash to have insecure default. Default should be secure. No, it's not just me, right? Like, say something, or like, do you agree? Let me know if you agree. Yeah? It should be secure by default. So I used to go into this a lot harder and kind of take on the individual person at Google who's been like contributing to this, I think, more than other people publicly. But I was approached by Red Hat, and they're like, you need to do a sit down and like not be so mean. I'm like, okay. Because, you know, I think what happened is Kubernetes, they didn't think that it would be used in production. That explains a lot, doesn't it? Because, you know, they're just at Google. There are like so many projects at Google, and they're all moonshots if they're not like making money from ads. And so people just do stuff, and they don't think that it's going to like eat the world. And so Kubernetes is catching up now on security. Like so many things, it's this thing after the fact. So my hope is that me like really taking them on at some other events a bit too much has communicated that the security community is watching and we care about this. And in the meantime, we can have some fun with it. I'm a little new to containers, admittedly, and so this isn't my original research. This is like really cool stuff that I found and I really want to share with you, and then you go, and what you do with it is not my business. You're responsible adults, I trust you. You look like trustworthy. So we're used to taking very strong measures. Is that 2 more minutes? Oh, wow. I misinterpreted the timing by a lot. Let's go really fast. 2 more minutes? All right. So here are people fighting over the clusters. Here's the Tesla hack. We're going to do this in super fast motion, and then I'm going to put it on the website. It says 12:18 here. I thought it was still 12:30. My apologies there. So the hackers are doing a very good job of hiding themselves. And here's what I really want to show you. I'm glad that you appreciate this. So here's a bunch of things that are insecure by default. Someone commenting on GitHub, is there a CVE for this? And the folks from Google are saying it's a misconfiguration, not a CVE. Thanks. It's fine. And here's Showdown. So this is what I think you're going to love. You can just type in Kubernetes master, and you can just find all the vulnerable Kubernetes instances. And, you know, here's some common vulnerabilities that you can look for on Showdown. There are a lot of security problems, and they're just known. This is the problem, that they're known. You look at etcd, and they say, this feature is off by default to preserve backwards compatibility. So, you know, the authentication was a completely open system. Anyone with access to the API could change the keys. And, you know, we're going to leave this insecure for backwards compatibility. No big deal. So, you know, here's some information on the port. It leaks all kinds of passwords. And here are the vulnerabilities to look for. And here's what you type into Showdown. Let's keep going. Tools that I like. ClareOS is good. Anything made by Kubernetes is actually pretty good. Kubebench is good. Here's what you get for output. Heptio, very good, and they're hiring, and they're remote. That's good money in Israel. Yeah, you want jobs in America, you come to me. And let's wrap this up. There's so much here. I love this slide. A round of applause for me because I'm not shy anymore. And here's my contact info because there's just so much here. So like DM me or email me or find me on Facebook or on LinkedIn and we can talk like all the container stuff or really like any hacker things that you want. And like seriously, it's a dream for me that I'm here at BSidesTLV. This is like clearly the gem of Cyber Week, so let's give it up for them.
Elissa, thank you so much. That was amazing and very fast. So thank you once again to Elissa for coming all the way to join us.